Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Stop Mass Hysteria, Michael Savage.
You know, the benefit of being lied to by both sides of the aisle is really simple. You don't have to take a trip to Mexico. You don't even have to travel to Honduras. They're here now. So before the election, we were told about the caravan and how they were coming here to invade the country, and it was all true. And the president came along, and he put the troops on the border, at least in a part of the border in Texas, and we felt better. And we kept asking after the election, I did anyway, no one else in the media seems to remember the story, where are the migrants? Where is the caravan? Well, we found out today, some of them have climbed over the fence in Tijuana. They've made it to America, and they're being put up in Airbnbs courtesy of American left-wing, fanatical, communist, anti-American vermin lawyers. So your blood starts to boil. On October 22nd, 2018, on this program, The Savage Nation, I read a monologue that I wrote entitled Trump's Alamo or Trump's Waterloo. And I said this: the president is now facing an existential moment in his presidency. This caravan has now swelled to 7,000 people. How did this happen? You've seen the footage, women pushing 5 children in a stroller. Are we supposed to take care of all of these people? Every third world impoverished person in the world is coming here, and the truth is we can't take care of all of them. And here's another truth. There's not a liberal listening to this show who wants them here. Do you think they're going to rush out and invite these people to live in their neighborhoods or in their homes? No, they don't want their quiet little neighborhoods ruined. And I said, let's be clear, this is an invasion army. Make no mistake about it. You might say that no other country in the world would allow something like this to happen, but you would be wrong. Germany did, and look what happened to them. Leaders in Germany are now saying there are no Germans anymore. So did France, and so did England. There are now no-go zones in these countries, even the police are afraid to go into. And I wrote this caravan and the others that will come after it are the existential threat to the survival of America if this is not stopped. And I said the question is, how does he stop it? What should the military do when they're sent? What should their rules of engagement be? Water cannons, rubber bullets, how far should they go? Trump is the one in the driver's seat, I wrote. We put him there for this. So what does he do? How does he stop this human wave? Here's a thought. It doesn't matter what he does. If he sends the military to the border, the media will follow, and they will take their pictures and videos and frame interviews to fit their narrative, and they will make it look like Trump, the military, the Border Patrol, and the Republicans are all evil white men, resorting to drastic measures to keep brown mothers and children for a better life in America. I can go on, but I'm not going to go on. That's one topic for today. Trump's Alamo or Trump's Waterloo. I think I'm going to change that to Trump's Maginot Line. Many of you know history. I'm afraid most of you don't know history. The Maginot Line, M-A-G-I-N-O-T, was built by France around in the late 1930s, before war with Germany actually began. The French had suffered such losses from World War I. They didn't want to suffer them again in World War II, but more importantly, the French did not want to be invaded by the Germans. So they built a fortified line that was the most advanced in the world on the border with Germany. It was fabulous, technologically 50 years ahead of its time. Problem was, it ended at Belgium. So guess what Hitler did? He didn't try to go through the Maginot Line. He crossed into France through Belgium. Well, apparently the Hondurans are smarter than the average American drug addict because, they didn't go where Trump put the military. They came through and around our Maginot Line. They're climbing over the fence as I speak in Tijuana into San Diego. And it's leading many people to saying they've lost faith in the Trump administration. They're coming over the walls screaming, "Viva Honduras," a country they allegedly are running from because it's such a horrible country. Why are they screaming, "Viva Honduras"? Why? I'll let you figure it out. That's one topic that we're going to do. There's so many others that are boiling inside of me. Here's another one. Robert De Niro bashes Donald Trump again, screaming down with the mother effer. So I woke up at 5 in the morning and I started to think to myself, there's something wrong with this man. There's something very wrong with Robert De Niro. And then I got up at 5 a.m. and I wrote a montage called Robert De Niro's Last Role, From Raging Bull to Raging Fool. And I said he is playing his last role, that of an aging ham who is showing the signs of pre-senile dementia. And I'm going to tell you more about what I think is psychologically wrong with Robert De Niro and why he is like this.
Savage.
So all before the election, all we heard about was the invasion coming in from Honduras and the other countries. And we cheered when the president sent the military to the border in Texas. And today we wake up and we see that they're not so stupid, these folks from Honduras. They're not quite as helpless as we may think. They're getting really good GPS help because the left-wing vermin lawyers in the ACLU, all of whom should be arrested immediately, obviously redirected some of them away from Texas, and they've crossed over into California from Tijuana. They have scaled our border fence. They've arrived with siege ladders, the same way an invading army takes a fort, going back to ancient Roman times and before that. Siege ladders were available to the migrant invaders, and they crossed our border wall, and they're running wild into San Diego. This is now no longer the question that I raised before in my previous monologue of is this Trump's Alamo or Trump's Waterloo? It is now Trump's Maginot Line. It is the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in my entire political career. It is Trump's Maginot Line. What was the point of having troops in Texas and not protecting the California border? Was this simply an election ploy? People are saying they've lost absolute faith in the Trump administration. There are other topics that I'm going to talk about today. Fox News backing CNN in suing the Trump White House should be one of the greatest shocks of your life, but it isn't to me. Fox News joined CNN's lawsuit against the Trump administration over the White House's revocation of the Vandals press pass, and they are going to file an amicus brief in the case to make certain that the vandal will be permitted into the White House press corps. 12 other left-wing other news organizations announced they would be joining Fox in filing an amicus brief against the White House, and those include all of the other propagandists who give us fake news every day: AP, Bloomberg, First Look Media, Gannett, National Press Club, NBC News, New York Times, Politico, Press Freedom Defense Fund, EW Scripps, USA Today Network, Washington Post. These are all the publications of the enemy of our way of life. We knew this a long time ago, but did you know that Fox was part of that cabal against our way of life? I did. The only people that are going to be left on Fox will be either overt liberals or crypto liberals, certainly not real conservatives, only those who make believe they are. And the louder they scream about being conservatives, and the more they spend talking about how they are the real conservatives, only I am the real conservative, only I know what a conservative is, only I wrote the Constitution, only my grandfather wrote the Constitution. Well, you know what that really means, don't you? The louder they scream, you know what that means, right? So we got the two topics. We got the topic of Trump's Maginot Line. And where is the president? Where is he? And then I was beginning to talk about Robert De Niro bashing the president again in the most vile way. And as I was beginning to tell you about De Niro's last role, From Raging Bull to Raging Fool, we had to take a quick break because we had a technical glitch. We're back on air. Thank God I have two systems in the studio. I have Comrex, which runs off the internet, and I also have ISDN, which runs off phone lines. And since one failed, we switched to the other. You didn't even know it happened, but I'm just giving you a behind-the-scenes look. We are also talking about a very interesting story, which is the First Lady coming out in an uncharacteristic way through her spokeswoman and very publicly demanding that a top aide to the warmonger Bolton be fired. Now, I'm talking about the chief of staff to the warmonger Bolton. Melania Trump is saying that that woman does not belong to the honor, doesn't have the honor to, it doesn't deserve the honor to work in the White House. Unheard of, unprecedented, never happened before. What does it actually mean? What's Michael's interpretation? Top Bolton aide to be fired at Melania's behest. What does this mean? It means what I told you yesterday. She wants Bolton gone, but she doesn't have the power to fire Bolton. She only has the power to fire a factotum of Bolton. Now, why would the First Lady, if I'm right, want Bolton gone? Because she's a woman of peace and she knows he's a man of war. That's all. Any other questions? So I have 3, 4, 5 topics I want to talk about. Florida recount. Where are the Cuban men pounding on the glass walls when we need them? Another topic. Many, many others. And the phone number here is 855-407-282. From the invaders coming over the border wall is making it look like this is not Trump's Waterloo, but Trump's Maginot Line. But something of great interest to me is the insanity of Robert De Niro, because there's something beyond the average dislike for Trump in him. And I've been watching it for a while. Now, remember this. I loved him as an actor in his early days. I thought he had such screen presence. I even liked him as a comedy actor. But then when he became crazy with the Trump stuff, and it's not because I helped elect Trump, it's because I'm watching an aging ham who is showing signs of pre-senile dementia. De Niro is now venting such obscene rage towards the President of the United States that I believe it indicates a pathology that only a psychiatrist of the highest intellectual level could articulate. There's no question in my mind as a radio commentator and observer of human folly that Robert De Niro's unhinged hatred for Donald Trump is not based upon reality so much as it is upon serious psychological trauma he suffered as a child, notably the fact that I believe he wishes Donald Trump had been his father. Now, given that all presidents are father figures, some are more alpha than others. It is not that far-fetched to believe that not only Robert De Niro's unhinged hatred of Donald Trump is deeply rooted in psychological damage as a child and a wish fulfillment fantasy that he had had a father like Donald Trump, but the same can be applied to the pathological insanity of the American left and their unhinged hatred for the president. Why do I say that? Well, for example, right after his election, and for months, all the pink-hatted screamers in the streets were screaming, but at who? What was the rage actually about? They were screaming to the heavens about what? Well, either they were hating the father figure that they had or wishing that Donald Trump had been the strong father to spank them and tell them to go to bed without dinner. Now, you've always heard the United States referred to as Uncle Sam, which is a very macho, very patriotic image. Taking that analogy one step further, if Donald Trump is the embodiment of Uncle Sam, my construct is not as absurd as it first may have sounded. Is it possible that the pathological hatred for Donald Trump is not based in reality? For after all, what is it that he's actually done that is so bad? I don't understand it. It's true he's not a left-wing fanatic, New World Order globalist, who answers to George Soros, but that would not provoke this level of emotion. So what exactly is behind it? There are some psychological issues here that I'd like to discuss today. Do you hate or love Donald Trump because of your own childhood issues? Are you actually projecting your own childhood issues like I think Robert De Niro is? Or maybe De Niro just took too many punches to the head while acting in Raging Bull, and he's gone from a raging bull to a raging fool. Now, the reason I'm mentioning all of this is because I'm going to play for you now a little soundbite of De Niro, and you'll hear the whole history of this, and it gets increasingly more vile and increasingly more mean-spirited, and I believe he's showing signs of pre-senile dementia. Let's listen and tell me what you think.
Every day something aggravates me about him and his administration. I don't know where to start.
I'd like to punch him in the face.
Many of these people who are now with Trump are making a deal with the devil. It's scary.
Make a note of apology for the idiotic behavior of my president. It's disgusting. I'm going to say one thing. Trump.
Let's clap for that. This idiot is the president.
It's no longer down with Trump. It's Trump.
Our baby in chief, I call him. The guy is a fool. Come on.
That scumbag is just trying to do the wrong thing.
How dare he say the things he does?
We're going to have like a street fair with Donald Trump dolls. Kids can punch them, hit them with sticks, deflate them, do whatever they want. This is going on until he's impeached.
Of course I want to punch him. Sometimes when people are bullies like that, that's what you have to do, to shut him up.
Because he won't shut his big fat mouth.
I know what he is.
He's a punk. He's a dog.
And he knows what he is.
He's so blatantly stupid. This fool.
Because everything he says about other people, you're a loser.
A mutt.
You're a this, you're a that.
He's a pig who doesn't know what he's talking about.
Is everything he's saying about himself.
He's an idiot, a national disaster.
He's so transparent.
It makes me so angry. This bozo has wound up where he has.
He's projecting.
So 2 days ago or the other night, he goes to the Friars Club filled with the worst people in the United States of America. And Monday night, apparently appears with, I think Billy Crystal, who I will now boycott as well. Anytime I now see Billy Crystal or Robert De Niro, as I'm clicking around, I pass them by so that I can drive their ratings down. It's getting worse by the day. This is no longer comedy. This is not satire. This is something different, and I think it's a pathology. Crystal's longtime collaborator, Alan Zweibel, who was named 2018's Friar of the Year. You hear what goes on in the Friars Club? Do you understand what that place is, what it's filled with? If you had a Communist Bund meeting, you couldn't find a better group of people acting out Communist Bund members than those in the Friars Club. And the worst of them, the chief dragon of the Bund Club, is Robert De Niro, who's gone from Raging Bull to Raging Fool.
Savage.
Aquí está Savage. I have so many Mexican people who listen to this show who love it. Poor Mexican people love this show. You know why they love Michael Savage? Because they think I'm right. You know, I spoke to a gardener today from Mexico. And he said, you know, one thing about you, Michael, he said, you tell the truth. You say it like it is. And I said, you do understand that these invaders are going to lower your wages. He said, I know. He said, it really disturbs me. They come here and he says, you're right, Michael. We all know it. They take advantage of this country. I said, do you know any who don't work? He said, oh, Michael. He said, many of them don't work. They have 3 children. They get food stamps. They get welfare. Whatever money they get, they send home to the home country. They pay no taxes. He said, we don't like that. So you think I'm the only one who sees what's going on in this country? I see the Republican leadership meeting this morning, slapping each other on the back, even though they just took a shellacking in the election, making believe. It's like watching the Titanic go down. And there was the Republican leadership on the poop deck, very aptly phrased, slapping each other on the back, listening to the music as the bow of the ship is going down. Like nothing happened. Like there was no message from this election. A week ago, military just before the midterm elections was sent to the border. We were saying, thank God. Thank God he's doing something. How are they going to stop them? We don't know, but at least there's a presence of the military. And then we wake up today, and there they are. They're arriving in Tijuana with siege ladders. These are 30-foot ladders. Where'd they get them from? Did the ACLU buy them the siege ladders waiting for them? Who? Who provided them the siege ladders? You remember what a siege ladder is? Do you understand that this is an invasion? And they're screaming, Viva Honduras, as they jump over the fence? The country they're allegedly running from out of fear, they're cheering? And you liberals buy that message? What does that tell you about yourself? I try to warn you many times. For 25 years, the motto of the show has been Borders, Language, and Culture. No, they're not like your grandfather who came here through Ellis Island. They're not like your grandmother who came here through Angel Island. No, this is something entirely different. Nobody broke into this country. When the last great wave of immigration occurred in this country, which was in the early 1900s era, when my grandfather himself came here through Ellis Island, do you remember the movie The Godfather, in which I think even Robert De Niro played in that movie? Speaking of the devil. Didn't he play Vito Corleone? He played Vito Corleone. No, he played one of the Corleones. Who knows which, but There was a scene where the young Vito comes into Ellis Island and he's stopped by an immigration officer, a big Irishman, who detains him and puts him in quarantine. Why? Because little Vito had tuberculosis, as did many immigrants from impoverished areas of southern Europe at that time. Right now we have diseased immigrants coming in from Central America. Oh, you don't see the connection between the crippling polio-like epidemic amongst children in America and the illegals? If you don't see that, you're blind. You're blinded than the three blind mice. Epidemics, immigrants and epidemics. I wrote about it many years ago. Nobody would publish the book. It was politically too sensitive. So we've got many things coming into this country that we don't need, and many things coming into the country that we do need. Like, for example, if you like cocaine and heroin and other hard drugs, you're in favor of this invasion because it's a conduit for you. It keeps you happy. And yet we have deranged actors attacking the one president who at least verbally said he would stop it. I wish the president would call an emergency broadcast tonight from the White House. I think it's long overdue. If this isn't an emergency, I'd like to know what is. Tell me what's a bigger emergency right now than this. Oh, the Northern California fires that you don't care about? The biggest fire in the state's history. It's going to cost $100 to $150 billion. Who's going to pay for that one? Me? If Jerry Brown says I'm going to put more taxes on the highest earners, I'm leaving the state. If I am taxed one more penny by this degenerate left-wing freak, I'm out of here. And guess what? I won't be the only one leaving. You'll have nothing but pollution left in this state if you keep it up. What are you going to do when you have no more earners left in the state, Jerry? You figured that out? Up there in Sacramento, what are you going to do when you drive everyone who makes a living out of the state? And all you have left are retirees and illegal aliens? Who's going to pay for it? Nancy Pelosi? Dianne Feinstein's going to pay the $150 billion? Who's going to pay for this fire? The country's in very bad trouble right now. And you know, there's an old adage that comes to mind. A house divided cannot stand. I have never in my entire, well, I shouldn't say never. I don't want to be too extremist about it. I'm angry, but I'm not extremist. During the Vietnam War, I saw a house divided that I thought would not stand. Luckily, the country was stronger than the left-wing vermin. Unfortunately, the left-wing vermin who tried to shake the nation and break it during the Vietnam War are now running the universities. They're running all of the media. All the media, with very rare exception, are now run by the same hippies who almost destroyed America during the Vietnam era. They're now running the media. They're running academia. A goodly percentage of them are in the government, the federal government, state governments, local governments. 90% of lawyers are oriented towards hating America and breaking it, bringing it down, because they're sick in the head. That's why they became lawyers to begin with. They have such an animus towards human beings that the only way they could act it out would be through the law, by perverting the law and hurting people is how they get their animus out on the average person. If they were smarter, they would have been a surgeon and taken it out through surgery. That's a joke. It's an in-joke for those in the surgical field. But you have to understand the psychiatry and the psychology, rather, of a surgeon who has been written about. Many surgeons who are skilled have an impulse to cut people and hurt them, but they've channeled this almost pathological desire to hurt people into something great called surgery. That's an interesting one. It brings us right back to where I started earlier, which is De Niro's last role from Raging Bull to Raging Fool. I personally think that he is so damaged from something that happened to him as a child, and I wish I knew what it was, that's why he has such a pathology towards Donald Trump. I mean, you could hate Trump's policies, and you could say it in one way or another. But the way he makes it personal indicates to me, and then, of course, it indicates to me that the whole American left with the screaming and the yelling and the pink hats, again, these are the unhinged pink hatters who are screaming for their father to spank them and tell them to go to bed without dinner. But getting back to the actor, the old ham, who is, I think, showing signs of presenile dementia to vent such obscene rage towards the president, does indicate a pathology. And I would like a psychiatrist to call the show and try to explain it to me. What happened to De Niro in his childhood, do you think, that he takes it out on Trump? Do you think that my theory might have some validity to it, which is that he has some wish fulfillment fantasy that he had a father like Donald Trump? I really mean that. In other words, he's actually mad that Trump was not his father. He wishes he had a good-looking, handsome, successful father. I don't know who his father was, but something's wrong. It's definitely directed at his own father. Something's about him and the father here. This kind of rage. See, you know, there's one thing to not like a president, but if it takes over your whole life, there's something else to it. You get it? So these are topics that I think are worth talking about. The Florida recount, I don't think there's much to discuss there. We know the Democrats are trying to steal the election. We know they belong in prison. And I'm asking, where are the Cuban men pounding on the glass walls while the ballots are being recounted now that we need them? Remember them? Remember how they stopped the charade last time? The guys in the black suits and the white shirts and ties, they came in raging, and the Democrats ran home screaming to cook a knedlach. They were no longer counting. They went home to make a nice chicken soup. All the old ladies ran home from the recount. All right, let's take – look, I could take some calls here. You know, I just had a near crash on the show. Something I like about – there's a part of me that has there's a part of me that likes difficulty, or I wouldn't be in radio to begin with, nor would I still be in the business if I didn't like severe challenges every day. I swear to God, right after I was in the opening and the show crashed, you didn't know it because Clint is such a skilled board operator that he went to a break. I was screaming in the other room and yelling and cursing. I hope it didn't get recorded. Of what did you didn't even hear it, thank God. The engineer was in there. What did you do to me? How did you sacrifice my show? What are you doing? Well, it turns out my Comrex, which runs off the internet, crashed, and it's Comcast Business. It's the most reliable system I've ever had. My magical voice comes to you as a result of that. It crashed. Luckily, my old ISDN system, this is for those of you in the business, I'm pulling the curtain back. I keep an old ISDN box here. I was about to disconnect the wires on the old system, and I said, you know what, let's keep it as a backup. Sure enough, we had to go back to the old internet connection, which you're hearing me on right now, thanks to the miracle of modern technology. And good thing that my assistant Ryan was here. Thank you, Ryan. Let's have a round of applause for Ryan. He ran in here and he replugged and reconnected and put in microphone. I don't even know what he did. I was making a cup of tea in the other room, trying to calm down, and I am calmed down. It'd be like flying a plane with, let's say, I don't know, they don't have 4-engine planes anymore, really. Let's say 2-engine plane and 1 engine goes, and you can fly on the other engine, right? You're not cruising, you're not crashing, but you want that other engine started again. So it would be like being a pilot with 1 engine that's failed, it didn't flame out, and you're going to restart that engine and you pray it starts. Well, both engines are now running. Thank you very much to the greatest team in radio, the Savage team. That would be Clint Granberry. I always say Cranberry. Clint Granberry. And I'm sure his great-grandfather got that right. Jim Verde, Ryan O'Callahan, great team. We're going to be here for you in January when the show becomes 1 hour of radio, as you're listening to it now on most stations, and then a 1-hour podcast, which you can get for free. And would you please write it down? You can get it through the portal called michaelsavage.com or any podcast portal. But if you don't know what that means, just you go on your internet and say, Find Michael Savage. You have an iPhone, just pump in Find Michael Savage. You'll find the podcast right then and there. But make sure you're here for me January 7th. That's going to be the first podcast. Put it in your calendar. January 7th, first podcast. I don't know what I'm going to do yet when I think about it. I don't know what my surprise is going to be. I'm thinking of having Robert De Niro on as a guest, but something tells me he won't be coming on. I actually would like to have some great guests on the first day, but everyone I'm going to say I'd like to have on is not going to come on the show. De Niro, no, he won't come on. President Trump, first podcast, doubt it. I'd like to have him on. Michael, you're great. Glad you're doing podcasting. You're beautiful. It's a beautiful podcast. You sound great. You should live to the age of Moses, but he won't be on. There are others I'd like to have on, but none of them want to appear, so it'll be me and Teddy. I'll be right back.
Savage.
Let me ask you something. Did you ever take your car in for an oil change and get hit with a huge repair bill? Well, it's happened to everybody at some point in their life. So that's why I say you should get extended vehicle protection from CarShield, and you won't worry so much about it. And if your car breaks down after the manufacturer's warranty expires, you could be out of pocket those big thousands. And I don't have to tell you what it costs today. That's why you should go to CarShield. It's as simple as that. I mean, you go to CarShield. What does that mean? You can save yourself thousands in future car repairs. Get covered by the ultimate and extended vehicle protection simply by calling 800-CAR-6100, code SAVAGE. Or visit carshield.com, again, code SAVAGE, and you will save 10%. That's 1-800-CAR-6100, code SAVAGE, or carshield.com, code SAVAGE. A deductible may apply. They make it very easy to fix your car for a covered repair. You can pick your own mechanic, or you have the dealership do the work, your choice. They also give you 24/7 roadside assistance and a rental car while yours is being fixed for free. Just simply call 1-800-CAR-6100, code SAVAGE, or go to carshield.com, code SAVAGE. A deductible may apply. And that's that. And that's that. And here's this. Go to the top of the Drudge Report. Caravan jumps border fence, no troops. This is what we're talking about, the no troops part. Now, we were told that our military was going to be sent to the border, and it was. And it was sent to Texas. Just as the French built the Maginot Line to stop the Germans from invading. The Germans went around the Maginot Line and came in through Belgium. The Hondurans are not so stupid, or their lawyers from New York are not so stupid, and the lawyers GPSed them right into the area where there were no troops. We are at war. This is a war for our resources, a war for the soul of America, a war for our borders, a war for our language, a war for our culture. We have an able general who is surprisingly silent today when we need him to speak to us, and he must call tonight, not tomorrow. We have an emergency. This is a national emergency. The president should call a national press conference tonight and explain to us what he's going to do to stop the hordes from coming over. The military is not there. There's no sign of them in Tijuana because they can't be in Tijuana, but they're not in California on the other side where they should be. And even if they were there, what would they be doing? They've gone from the halls of Montezuma to becoming a welcome wagon. What will they doing? Be making hot enchiladas and setting up tents for the migrants? That's what they're going to be doing, cooking food for them? That's what our military's come down to? The Marine Corps will be cooking food for the illegal aliens jumping the... This is crazy. Sorry. The survival of America is at stake right now. Ed is a former immigration inspector on WBOB in Jacksonville. Bob, I'm so... Ed, go ahead. You have your minute of fame. What do you want to say about this, Ed? I'm very wound up over this.
Dr. Savage, yesterday you said you had some bright friends who said the country was finished, but you disagreed. I have to tell you that your friends were very correct. 30 years ago, as an immigration inspector at JFK International Airport, we had a saying among my colleagues that the country was finished. Because at Kennedy Airport, that was a quiet invasion, whereas now this is a full-fledged invasion that people could see. Ours was very quiet. Nobody came off a plane and ran through immigration or customs inspection. They came in, they presented themselves. But that was
and then they asked for asylum because they knew the law was so weak that they'd have to be granted a hearing. Then they disappeared into the nation. No one ever saw them again. The next thing you know, they're voting in New York City elections. The next thing you know, you have one corrupt mayor after another. The next thing you know, New York is a jungle. The next thing you know, it's an asphalt jungle where you can't even ride a subway without getting beaten up.
Savage. Warning, the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Stop Mass Hysteria, Michael Savage.
Well, the country is in crisis once again. The caravan has finally arrived, has jumped the border. The troops are not there. It's the equivalent of the Maginot Line in World War II. We are waiting for some comments, some reassurance, some statement from the White House. And I hope we don't have to wait too long because this was a major campaign issue, was it not? Was it all window dressing just to get you to go vote? Or did they really mean it? Why are there no troops on the other side of the border in Tijuana? Couldn't they figure out that's where they would go? Well, there they are. And where's the military? Nowhere to be seen. So we're living through an hysteria right now that reminds me in some ways of the hysteria of the Vietnam War era. And I want to remind you what that was like. In every city, on every campus, it seemed as though everyone had lost their minds and was acting out. It was different from today, where people are manipulated by social media on a daily basis. This was a generational hysteria in which even the fading HUAC got involved when it subpoenaed Jerry Rubin and Abbie Hoffman in 1967, two founders of the Yippie movement, a coy play on hippie that described a group of disruptive, theatrics-loving clowns who infiltrated the New York Stock Exchange and threw money, real and fake, at the traders, held sit-ins and be-ins in public places, and threw Nazi salutes and blew gum bubbles during the HUAC hearings. These self-described Groucho Marxists were every inch the hysterical lunatics they appeared, I thought at the time, and nothing has changed my opinion, that they were half-baked anarchists without the skill set to promote an alternative to whatever they protested. The anti-establishment lunacy continued until two events put an end to it. The first was the 1974 resignation in disgrace of Richard M. Nixon as a result of the Watergate break-in. The second was the end of direct U.S. military involvement in Vietnam. Although the fighting continued until 1975, the targets were gone, the insanity passed. Now, the end of this hysteria wasn't like pulling the plug on a computer where a vital machine goes silent. It was like a clean breeze blew in and swept rotted flower petals away. To borrow a phrase from Bob Dylan, they were blowing in the wind. A smattering of the hardcore lunatics and radicals emerged from hibernation a few years ago. They pulled their gray hair into ponytails, loaded their iPods with as much Joni Mitchell as Tim Cook's little devices could hold, and showed up to occupy Wall Street rallies, rally for Bernie Sanders, and participate in other hysterical protests, now the anti-Trump protests. Because you will notice the old hippies and young radicals never show up to support anything for all citizens, like eating healthy. It is in their DNA to destroy. But while they were never very dynamic, these modern-day hippies are just sad relics, the byproduct of a dazed reactionary youth that grew into something mentally, emotionally, and physically stunted, and people wonder why the nation is on the verge of having a nervous breakdown. And the reason is because that deformity is another byproduct of hysteria. If you subscribe to it at a young age, as a matter of course, you stop listening, except to your own voice and the simplistic mantras of your fellow airheads in an echo chamber. You fail to take in ideas that are intellectually nutritious. And part of that pathology is you want everything else to be the way you are. No restrictions, no literate words, no tradition. In short, no borders, no language, no culture. With these people as role models, with the rebellious 60s held up as an example of protest, we are breeding a generation of equally vapid youth, of lemmings, of people who know only one setting, hysteria. We see it in the reaction to the election of Donald Trump, which almost 2 years after the fact continues to reduce a portion of the electorate to a vocabulary of inarticulate cries. They just nod obediently like zombies whenever Bernie speaks. Those are 2 pages from the book that you must have in your hands, Stop Mass Hysteria. It's the greatest Christmas gift you can ever give because it's a gift that will keep on giving. And now I want to go to the hysteria of Robert De Niro. As I said, he has every right to detest the president's policies. He has every right to express them as I do, in any way I want, about any subject. But when it reaches this level of pathology, where he uses dirty words, and he has such a visceral hatred for the president, there's something more at play. And I believe that is deeply rooted in psychological damage that De Niro may have suffered as a child, along with a wish fulfillment fantasy that he had a father like Donald Trump. And the same can be applied to the pathological insanity of the American left itself and their unhinged hatred for the president. And I asked earlier when I said, is there a psychologist out there or a psychiatrist who has some insight into this, of why De Niro is so viscerally crazed about Donald Trump? My position is that he wishes that he had a father like Donald Trump. That's what I think, because this is not a normal or even average angry level of protest. Chris on WABC. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Hi, Dr. Savage. Thanks for taking my call. So I did want to call in and just speak a little bit about what I believe is what's called narcissistic personality disorder, which Robert De Niro clearly exhibits signs and symptoms of in regard to his inability to handle any type of criticism, his inflated sense of his own ego and his own self-worth. And lots of actors subscribe to this and are not subscribed.
Yes, but De Niro is taking the lead in attacking the president in the most vicious way and on a repetitive basis, to the point where you start to say, what really is underneath all of this? Are you in the mental health professions by any chance?
Yes, I am. I've been a mental health practitioner for 18 years in the state of New Jersey. As
what? Psychologist?
Psychologist, psychotherapist. I have 2 licenses, one for substance abuse counseling and one for mental health.
All right, so you deal with obsessive personalities. So I jump the shark on this, and I say, in my non-professional analysis, that De Niro appears to have been damaged as a child, and that he almost wishes he had Donald Trump as a father. Is that a possible scenario, a psychological profile, rather?
Given that De Niro actually was a high school dropout who went to acting classes.
He never even went to college.
No, he didn't. What De Niro did, I'm actually pretty familiar with his background. Well,
then he'd be perfect to be a talk radio host. He would fit right in.
Yeah, well,
all right, I couldn't resist getting that one in. But okay, so he went to acting school. But why the hatred for Trump?
I believe the hatred for Trump is because there's nothing to me more dangerous than a person who has an antisocial personality disorder or a wounded narcissist. And when I look at De Niro, I see a wounded narcissist because what Trump did, as a narcissist himself, to be honest, is hit back. What De Niro is suffering from is 50 years of everyone telling him he's the most wonderful, gifted, amazing person, almost a messiah-like figure. And then here comes Donald Trump, and De Niro disagreed with him. I don't like him. His policies stink. But then all of a sudden, Trump attacked back. And what Trump has been doing to a lot of his opponents, unlike what I've experienced in the past, is he's not sugarcoating anything. He's not a George Bush who'll just, come out and say the politically correct thing. Trump goes right after because he's wounded himself. So what does he do? He fights back, and that hits at the core of that disorder, which creates this rage and this visceral attempt to exact revenge and exert dominance, which is really what De Niro is trying to do in all of this. And he's not able to control himself or see the forest from the trees. That really what's happening is he is exposing his own flaws and his own weaknesses by taking that approach.
All right, so that goes a little bit to my feeling or surmisal that there's some psychological damage that De Niro suffered as a child to do with his father, and that he wished that he had a father like Donald Trump. Don't you think there's a possibility they wish they had a strong father like Trump?
Absolutely. I mean, to me, I look at if De Niro was sitting on my couch, and I know that all the analyze this joke might come out, but
yeah, that was funny.
So I'd be digging into. So how is it your parents allowed you to drop out of high school and travel by yourself to Manhattan 5 days a week to go to an acting school? Clearly, you had to convince them. Clearly, there's something.
But he grew up in the West Village, didn't he? Wasn't he a West Village inhabitant? Didn't he live in the Village?
Yeah, he was in New York. He's originally a New Yorker. He still traveled. He still had to take the train into whatever the acting school was. It wasn't around the block for him, from my understanding. I could be wrong, but from what I remember reading, he traveled into his acting school, dropped out of high school. So I'd want to know, how is it that...
But the ignorance of so many of these prominent actors is a reflection of their lack of any education, meaning knowledge. It's easy to put down college education and say it's useless. However, it's not always useless, obviously. We'd have no trained physicians, no trained engineers, no trained pilots, no trained architects. I mean, do I have to go down the list? So education is extremely important, and it's not necessarily a waste unless you waste the time in there by taking acting classes or sociology or something like that. But getting back to him, I see a father issue here. That's what I was getting at. And have you ever delved into the father issue with this kind of rage?
Yes, and then what ends up happening, because father issues are very, very powerful, especially for males. And it's not often talked about amongst, males who enter into therapy. If he had a father who was either overly dominant or overly submissive, it can create that kind of paradox where you kind of want the other side of what you got. So if his father was the type who would be, a dominant, overbearing type of person, of course.
No, I don't know much about De Niro's father, but the little I've read says he was the opposite of that. He was absent in that regard. And he loved his father very much, but his father was a rather meek figure in his life. Now, that must tie into Donald Trump in some way, his hatred for Trump.
Yeah, Trump. The Trump thing, and for me, Dr. Savage, is very interesting because I would want to really sit down and figure that out. But what's clear is whatever that has definitely, solidified this narcissistic personality. And Trump is that, he's almost that archetypal figure where he just triggers Robert De Niro, and I'm sure a lot.
Yeah, no, because this is a triggered situation. He's actually acting out a psychologically mad person in a movie that's yet to be written. He's almost like a character in that thing with Jerry Lewis. I don't know if you ever watched any of De Niro's early movies where he plays the nut who wants to get on a TV show, and he stalks a TV host, and then he kidnaps him and ties him up. He's obsessed with this TV host, so obsessed that it becomes his whole life. I think that Trump has probably become De Niro's entire life. And you could look at this and laugh at it and say he's gone from raging bull to raging fool, and I think that works. But there's something here that's actually sick, and it could turn into something worse unless he is called out and said, Mr. De Niro, it's time to stop it. The whole world can see right through this. You've got to, for your own sake, stop this. We're not worried about Donald Trump being hurt by you, but you're hurting yourself. And I think he is hurting himself by shaming himself. But it's enough on that. I want to thank you for calling the show, number one. And hold on, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, you're getting the quiz of the day.
Okay.
How are you going to listen to this show come January in New York?
7th, I'll be on the podcast.
Oh, thank God. I have an educated listener. You're the first caller from New York who knows all you got to do is go to michaelsavage.com and you'll get the same Michael Savage that you're getting now. You won't hear me on the air because for whatever the reasons are, I don't want to go into them. I have my own belief system on that. But nevertheless, you'll be able to hear me because I'm not going anywhere. I'm going nowhere, but I'm going to be right here in front of the microphone. I thank you so much. I'm sending you a Christmas gift. Stop Mass Hysteria, the best book of its time. Back in a minute.
Savage.
Listen, we're getting lots of calls today, not about the caravan jumping the border fence, but about Robert De Niro's alleged madness and anger towards Trump and what it's based upon. I say there's a father issue there. And you know what's interesting to me, why people are calling on that and not on the border thing? Because there's nothing you can say about the border thing that we haven't heard 5,000 times. And, one of the great things about talk radio is it gives you an opportunity to express ideas and maybe develop ideas and think about something. And this issue of the pathological madness of De Niro towards Trump and how it's escalating is catching fire. And I'm asking you what you think. So, David, on WABC in New York, what is your theory on why De Niro's gone from raging bull to raging fool?
The problem with De Niro is that he tries to portray himself as being from a tough part of the Lower East Side of Manhattan, as a tough guy family. But in reality, his father was a little bit Pinocchio. He grew up in kind of like in the gay section of Lower Manhattan, which is the Greenwich Village. And
Wait, hold on. I didn't know any of that. I don't know what Pinocchio means. You're saying what?
It's an Italian expression, being a little Pinocchio. It means that his father was basically in the closet, wasn't portraying his personality the way it might have looked on the outside. Therefore, he didn't have the same, he didn't have that masculine upbringing that he claimed.
So I really didn't know that. So do you think this has something to do with why he resents Trump, because he wishes Trump was his father, or that his father was like Trump?
Well, my experience with people in those situations is that they get jealous when they see a family that's a strong family and that is very successful, and they stick together. he doesn't have that situation. It's just a matter of jealousy. Plus, he's acting out. He's trying to cover up his past, his life.
Is Robert De Niro personally a tough guy, or did he only play tough guys? He looks like he's a tough guy.
No, he's probably about 5'4". He's not a big guy. He tries to portray himself as that, but anybody knows that area that he comes from, not the Lower East. It's not the Italian section of the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Everybody knows that Greenwich Village was the artist colony and the gay colony of New York.
Yeah. It was the sign of the whole. It was the beginning of the whole scene, the Stonewall revolution there and the bar there. Are you from New York?
Yes.
Are you going to listen to me on the podcast in January when you can't hear Mike on the airwaves?
Absolutely. I've already started.
Thank God. See, another one with a brain. Stay on the line. I'm sending you Stop Mass Hysteria. So I got 2 listeners from New York. That's good. That's good.
Savage.
So here I am. It's already the 14th of November. Thanksgiving is next week. Then the holidays come up, the Hanukkah, the Christmas, and boom, it's over the year. You know how it like races by, right? Well, here we are. We got the fires up here. I haven't had a clean breath of air for 10 days, but that's nothing. Look at the people that lost everything up there. $150 billion worth of damage. And I'm sitting here reheating my soup. I'm not eating it on the air. Don't get mad at me. I had some Indian dreck last night, so today I'm just reheating the... I got a minestrone soup for lunch yesterday from a local Italian restaurant, a real one. Family runs it for 40 years. They know Italian food. The rest is such garbage. And, you know, I live in an area which proposes to be one of the great food places on earth. In the city, you can find some good places. In Marin County, where I live, it is a food desert. I went into a place called Il Fornaio, a chain, the other day. You wouldn't know. You cannot believe how bad this place can be. You go in because it's got a white tablecloth and you got the poseurs. They swirl the wine. They wouldn't know a pasta sauce from sewer dropping, most of the people who eat there. Either they're on medication or they're drunk. When they walk in, you imagine they don't know what they're eating. A terrible experience, and they're hostile to everyone who comes in there. So instead, I got some takeout soup yesterday and a salad, which I hate. I did it to you got it once in a while, you got to do a minimal. So I just reheated some soup. It's like a gazpacho now. Garbage. I could throw it in the garbage and have a steak, but I'm not going to do that. You can't. You can't just eat what you want. If I had eaten what I wanted all my life, I'd be dead. I wouldn't even be alive. You have to control, don't you? I'm not going to go to Jenny Craig. So I'll reheat, that's all. I'll reheat a minestrone soup. Terrible. It's just awful. I'm so hungry right now I could eat one of Teddy's leftover hamburgers. I had Ryan get him a bag of hamburgers from McDonald's last night. He was not eating. Sometimes my old dog gets real picky. He won't eat it all. So to get him back on eating it all, I have him pick up some burgers of no salt, no pepper, no nothing on them. He even likes the bun. I chop it up. It's not so bad for him. Don't call the ASPCA. He likes it. It gets him started. You know, it's keeping him alive. I give him good food. I'm so hungry now I could raid the refrigerator for an old burger, but I won't do that. I'm not going to that level. I could see my poor great-grandfather looking at me in the picture now saying, this is what it's come down to with all your money and fame and power, eating leftover cold soup? What's wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You have all this power in your mind. You have a reach. Forget power. You have reach. People listen to you. You're a famous author. You have the money to buy a meal in any restaurant. Why are you sitting in front of a microphone in the middle of the afternoon eating cold soup? It's like, I'm back to where they started from. I may as well be an immigrant off the boat who can't afford a lunch, eating a cold soup while I'm working on a tailor machine. That's what it is. You sacrifice for this business that I'm in. I wouldn't have it any other way. I live for this. I live for this. I love this. I love this. They will never take me off the radio. You'll have to pry my cold fingers off. I love that statement, right? You'll have to pry my cold, hard fingers off the gun. Remember that one? Who was the actor who said that? A great actor. Who? Maston? Charlton Heston. Everyone's forgotten them. This is the thing about America. No one knows an actor who was once so famous. Things have moved so fast. No one remembers John Wayne. But Charlton Heston said, you'll have to pry my cold, dead fingers off the gun or something like that. That's how I feel about the microphone. I'm not leaving. I can be reduced to one station, 2 Dixie cups and a string. I'll still be on the air because with podcasting, the beauty is that you don't actually need to be anywhere but on the This is astounding. Everyone now has a podcast. So could you imagine going into a podcast, bringing in an audience that is so large as mine to that podcast, even if a fraction of them listen? I really, it's like I want to start something new, and I want to excel at it. I want to prove that I can beat everyone in the podcasting world within a year or two. You're going to help me do that. We're going to set a record. No one's putting Mike out to pasture because they're, crypto or overt liberals who hate my message. Now, make no mistake about it. That's the only reason. People listen to me fanatically. What do we have here? Lisa on WABC. What line is this? 4? Line 4. What's on your mind, Lisa?
Hi. I just wanted to let you know I'm the third person who will be listening to your podcast in January.
Wait, so you're a regular listener in New York, and you're going to follow me onto the podcast. So obviously you got the message where? On the show or on my website? Where?
Oh, I listen to your show every day, and I wanted to tell you also, my mom, she's 90. She got me into your show years ago, and I have a 17-year-old who I got into. So you're multi-generational in my family.
I love it. I love becoming part of the families that listen to the show. It makes me so fulfilled inside.
I love that my son, because we drive now, and I have to drive him sometimes, after school. He doesn't really drive yet. He doesn't have his license yet. And when I drive him places and we're together, he's right away. He's like, put on Michael Savage, hurry up. And he is with the commercials, which is hysterical. But I love that.
I know. It's hard to hear me. It's like you got to try to catch me in between the commercials. And no, it's a fact of reality in radio. Everyone says the same thing.
But that's what we're so happy about. In January, first of all, they won't cut you off at 5 like they do in New York, which is terrible. Because the show ends at 5. They go to somebody else, or I think you keep going on, right?
Yeah, I'm on another hour across America.
Yeah, no, it's whatever. They stop at 5.
Well, my ratings were too good, so they have to take me off the air, that's all.
And then also there'll be no more commercials. So we're fine. And the great thing is my son, and it's not even a problem. When I told him, he's like, oh, for a 17-year-old.
Well, younger guys listen to podcasts. Younger people like podcasts a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. My mom, I don't know. She's in the house. She doesn't have Wi-Fi. So I'm going to have to figure out how to get her to keep listening, because she runs the radio. Like I said, she's 90, so it runs all the time.
No, a lot of older people are not going to be able to listen to the show on a podcast. They're not equipped for it. If you have an iPhone, you can get a podcast instantaneously,
Yeah, or a hotspot where she can stream it. But
Please, this is a family show. We can't do medical things.
But I thank you.
What borough do you live in?
Nassau County.
Well, that's sort of like a borough. How's the MS-13 gang problem out in Nassau County? The cops have some problem on their hands, don't they?
Yeah, it's bad. It's very bad. It's bad. This whole area is bad. Here.
And you know how that started on Long Island?
No.
I was there when it started. I was in the area, and I saw the liberals reaching out to the immigrants, the illegal immigrants, bringing them in, churches, other groups. The same bleeding heart liberal story, giving them this, giving them that, the food stamps, the housing, while the local people had to struggle for it. And the next thing you knew, the gangs emerged amongst the families that were coming in. The drug trade thrived, and then the rest followed, and this is what happens. It's all interconnected. Donald Trump is not wrong at all about it, and that's why we voted for him. How do you personally feel about the caravan jumping the border fence today with no troops there in Tijuana?
It's funny. I told my son on the way here today, I said, right, I gave him a meme that's up. I said, if socialism was so great, I said, why aren't they just going to Venezuela? Why are they coming here?
No, everybody knows why they're coming here, because of the benefits. And no other country on earth would give them the benefits and then let them disrespect the nation at the same time.
You know what? I have to listen to you because I get so aggravated that I can't even. It's just the whole.
I know you get perplexed, and then you get tied up, and you don't know what to do with the confusion and the rage. And sometimes I can lighten the load, but sometimes it gets to me. The insanity of this nation is something that's hard to figure. When in your lifetime, when you were a younger woman, did you ever see an actor hating a president the way this De Niro hates Trump?
No, he's not well. But De Niro's not well. But I don't think he's been well for a long time. But I think the psychologist that you had on air before my call, he shed a lot of light on the whole situation. Like you're saying, it's a father issue, and
yeah.
He said how his father was very timid. So it makes sense how he's going the opposite way. Like there's something about, it makes perfect sense. Donald Trump pushed back, and he couldn't handle that.
Oh! So that's what's triggering the actor.
Yes,
is that somebody actually stood up to him finally because he's used to having his behind kissed day and night.
I just think it's disgusting. All these actors and actresses, they're so. My son.
Right. Don't they depend upon we, the American people, for their living? Don't they understand that a goodly percentage of the audience for their product are people who voted for Donald Trump and will not patronize their movies ever again? Like if I ever see Billy Crystal again, who I always liked, because he was on a stage with Trump, I'll flash right by that movie now. As much as I like as much as I like De Niro's movies, I don't watch them at all on any replay. It's my little protest. I flip right by the channel replaying. Whether it's The Godfather around Thanksgiving, I will not watch it. Anything he's in, I don't watch.
And the whole thing is that I feel, we go to the movies to get entertained, to get our mind off of this stuff. Like, stop bringing it in. You're here to entertain us. If we want to hear politics, we'll put on talk radio. We'll do something. Do
you remember the movie that De Niro was in where he kidnaps the Jerry Lewis figure and ties him up with duct tape to get on the show?
Yeah.
I don't remember. It's an obscure movie. I don't know the name of King of Comedy. It was actually a great movie. Jerry Lewis is always great. But De Niro shows a deranged character who lives in his mother's basement and sets up a fake talk show that he makes believe he's been invited to be on. And the character devolves into a psychopath who eventually kidnaps the host of the show and makes believe that he's on his show. I think that De Niro is actually becoming Milton Pippernick or something like that, the character now. He's devolving into the character in that movie.
Dr. Savage, can I ask you a question?
Only if it's not a medical or a psychological question.
He's all upset about the bomb that was sent to him. You're telling me he doesn't have any cameras? I don't.
Oh, come on. What bomb?
And why?
What bomb was sent? What, that nutcase, the, quote, Filipino or the Indian? No one even knows who the guy was. He sent these things filled with baby powder. You couldn't light a cigarette with the bombs that were sent, number one. And number two, how many of the people who claimed they got one actually even got one of the fake bombs or didn't jump into it like the Me Too movement? It was like a Me Got a Bomb Too movement. Yeah, remember toward the end they were all saying they got one? Yeah, I got one out here too. Right, I got one. Yeah, me got bombed too. Yeah, me got bombed too. Don't leave me out. Please, I'm not important unless I got one of those bombs. Crazy, isn't it?
It is.
All right, listen, I'm going to make your Christmas holidays. I'm setting this for your tree. Stop mass hysteria. It's going under your tree for your son. I'll be right back.
Savage.
Most of you, if you have regular home security companies, you know it's like a bad cable company, right? Hours waiting for the technicians, then hours on the phone. And then when you can't take them anymore, you want out, they say, nope, sorry, you're stuck in a 3-year contract. And I told you don't need to get stuck anymore. If you're looking to protect your home, go with Simply Safe Home Security. They're real, and they're comprehensive in their protection of every window, door, and room in your home. It's beautifully designed. It looks good in your house. You'll actually want to use it. You could put it in yourself with a couple of simple tools. And using Simply Safe makes your home safer. It's that simple. There are backups in place to keep you safe, protecting your home even if you lose power, you lose your internet, or someone attacks the system. Best of all, you're going to get 24/7 monitoring with police and fire dispatch for just $15 a month. And unlike other home security companies, no long-term contracts with Simply Safe. It's the best around-the-clock protection you can find for the best price. So protect your home today. Get free shipping and free returns at simplysafesavage.com. That's simplysafesavage.com. Once again, simplysafesavage.com. And now back to the caravan jumping the border fence with no troops, and there's no conversation. It seems to be a news blackout. That's what bothers me the most. The caravan I've been asking about, Trump sent the troops to the Texas border with Mexico, and we thought we'd have some kind of action to stop them from invading us. And all of a sudden we wake up today, and here they are with siege ladders. They're going over the border with ladders, 30-foot ladders, jumping right over the border into the promised land. What do you think they're coming here for while they're screaming about how great Honduras is? They're screaming, Viva Honduras. Can you believe the audacity and nerve of these people? Watch the migrants climb over the fence as the caravan arrives in Tijuana. Just watch them jump over it. And, boy, they're good climbers. Man, these guys are strong. I don't see any women and children climbing the fence, by the way. I don't think carriages go up vertically. These are strong young men. I don't think our own troops could climb that fence. In fact, I'm sure that 50% of them who are said to be obese couldn't climb the fence. So these guys are really good soldiers that they're sending in here. Great, just what we need. They got baseball caps and everything. The only thing missing is an M1. How they could climb up a 40-foot fence straight up. You know how strong these kids must be? Just what America needs right now. Just what the doctor ordered. Just what the doctor ordered. But there they are, celebrating the country they've run from, and helped by American left-wing lawyers who are giving them Airbnb housing. If you want to see the insult to insults, there it is. So we have a lawless nation. It's out of control. Crazy. Just crazy, the country. A house divided cannot stand. There's not a liberal that I know in the real world, never mind what they say to their friends. There's not a liberal listening to this show, and there are many who do. San Francisco, New York, Dallas, who really wants any more illegals here. Moreover, the Mexican immigrants I know who are working here, and they're the hardest workers I ever met in my life, want them here because they know they're only going to drive their own wages down. And as I said to a Mexican man this morning, I said, do you know that your people have the highest number of medals of honor in the military, the Mexican people, because they're great warriors? He didn't even know that, but I know that. This is not about race, my friends. This is about survival as a nation. It's survival as a nation. If you're going to buy into the mass hysteria that they're all coming here to work, then you really are stupid. They're coming here for one thing only, the freebies, welfare, food stamps, legal care, medical care, children care, schooling, housing, everything that your own children would not be given by the left-wing government in this country.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.